These cold January days call for early morning breakfasts of buttermilk pancakes and bacon. A simple, warm breakfast to ease us into the day, fill our bellies, and warm our bodies. I am mixing up 2 cups of plain flour, a tablespoon of baking powder, and half a teaspoon of salt to make my own self-rising flour this morning. I do this quite often and don't normally keep self-rising flour on hand, so this is a nifty little trick for you. If you also don't, or if you want to use a different flour than just the plain old white flour that is in self-rising flour. Of course, any good country breakfast has to have a cup of coffee served with it, and while my cast iron pan heats up on the stove with a slab of butter, I am making what I call pour over coffee country style. I see people with their fancy little contraptions that sit on the top of their mug, which I'm sure is the way to make a better cup of coffee. But I have my old percolator here, and on days when I'm not so desperate for a warm cup, I let it take its time, percolating, listen to it bubbling on the stove. But this day in particular, I just needed a little pep in my step pretty quick to get all these pancakes served up to some hungry babies, as you can see. So the quick way it was, I'm the only coffee drinker in this house. So I usually heat up only about 2 cups of water on the stove until almost boiling. And while that heats up, I just add in my coffee grounds, about 1.5 tablespoons per cup of water into the top part of the percolator. I've also done this in a mason jar with a coffee filter over the top if you don't have a percolator. I like to add 1 egg per cup of flour. So I'm adding 2 eggs and about 1 cup of buttermilk into the flour. I like to use a measuring cup to scoop and pour my pancakes. I can fit 3 on this pan pretty well. They cook up quick while my coffee filters through. Now we decided to fry up some eggs on the side this morning in some of the bacon grease left from that oven baked bacon. Today was a day of getting Christmas packed away and out of the house. It took me longer this year than I would have liked, and y'all are actually watching this much later than I had hoped as well. Time has just gotten away from me in these winter months. I considered leaving the natural, non-Christmas type of decor up. You know, the dried fruit, popcorn garlands on the window, or the greenery that is slightly less than fresh all around the house. But honestly, I really just wanted a fresh, clean slate for winter. I have plans to declutter and deep clean, and while it's mid-January already and I still haven't made it to that, we're getting there after a short break of being snowed in and spending as much time as we could in the snow. Now, my husband has a homemade ornament box from growing up that we keep all of our ornaments in, the ones from my childhood, his childhood, and then ones that we have gotten for us in our married years. But the kids have some ornaments of their own that one day when they go off and they have their own homes, they'll take with them. And really, Ala is a very sentimental kid. She holds on to things that are given her really tightly and gets very emotional over things. So she was very excited to separate her ornaments and have a box of her very own. They too will have homemade ones eventually. But just in case it wasn't this year, I did snag an ornament organizer. And we did put some ornaments in it after we spent, half an hour trying to get those silly things put together. As much as greenery in the winter seems like such a nice note of the season right outside our door, it was starting to shed everywhere and dry out really bad. So I decided to just clear the whole house of it, all for a clean start to the new year. I really thought I would want to leave a few things up just as some winter decor, but I really just wanted a clean, somewhat empty house so that I can get it deep cleaned and decluttered and ready to go before garden season comes. I hesitated to put out some of my new antiques that I shared with y'all in my last video because I tend to go towards more springy or garden themed things, but I just couldn't wait. So I went ahead and put up my Country Garden Goose needlepoint right here in our entryway that we use like a mud room. All of the garden harvest baskets and seeds and gloves are here in this cabinet behind me, so it really just makes sense. I don't have a photo for this frame just yet, but I'm thinking of bringing out several frames for this little entryway table to fill with family photos and photos of the kids and just layer them in here. So I'm testing the waters with this frame, mostly to see how many times Jack pulls it down on himself to decide if this is going to work. We'll see if he goes after it. So far, so good. in the spirit of a cozy winter and a little extra time to do projects like this, I decided to DIY a little frame of sorts on this punch needle strawberry. My mom has been wanting to learn to punch needle and got all of the stuff for Christmas, so I snagged Isla up a little kit so that they could do it together. This was Isla's finished project that she wanted to frame for her bedroom, but we don't have a frame that fits it. So after bedtime one evening, I curled up in my rocker by the lamp and hand-stitched a little lace edge around it to surprise her with when she woke up as a temporary frame of sorts. One day we'll find one. We don't get a lot of snow, but we usually get a good snow once or twice a year. We knew some blustery weather was headed our way, but it was a surprise to me to see snowflakes falling outside my bedroom window during my Sunday afternoon nap after church. It didn't stick, but it sure set a nice backdrop to a cozy Sunday afternoon at home before heading back in to church.
Tells me there's no other way to get to the kingdom of God. That narrow gate is Jesus Christ. And it goes on to say the highway to hell is broad, which is much like what we see in the world today.